Brock Lesnar, Holly Holm, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Anderson Silva, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Alex Pereira, Yuri Prohaska. All of these names entered the UFC and in 4 fights or less became UFC world champion. Now Steve Erceg has the opportunity to join that elite list of names and UFC Hall of Famers if he can beat Alexandre Pantoja this weekend at UFC 301. The number 10 ranked Steve Erceg that hails from Australia will look to improve to 4-0 in the UFC, become a flyweight world champion, all in the span of less than 12 months, less than 1 full calendar year, something that is very, very rare to do in this game. A lot of people are writing off Steve Erceg. A lot of people hated the fact that this was the next flyweight championship fight. A lot of people felt there were other deserving contenders, but that is not the route that the UFC chose to go with. They instead went with Steve Erceg, who is 3-0 so far in the UFC, 2 top 15 victories over the names such as David Dvorak and a knockout in March of Matt Schnell. That one-punch KO was enough for the UFC to throw Erceg in May 4th in enemy territory to take on Alexandre Pantoja, who is on the best stretch of his MMA career. Pantoja has won 5 straight fights and will look to defend his flyweight championship for the second successful time, the first being against Brandon Royval last December. Before that, he took the belt from Brandon Moreno. He finished Alex Perez and Brandon Royval and beat Manel Kape. Those 3 fights earned him that shot at Moreno. And in the UFC, he is 11-3 overall, dating back to when he debuted in January of 2017. The 35-year-old Pantoja has entered his prime and is in the best stretch of his UFC career, maybe even his MMA career if you want to add in the high-level opponents that he is beating. And really, not a lot of these fights have even been that competitive. It looked like a very convincing victory over Brandon Moreno to win the title. A very convincing victory over Royval in his first title defense. Will he do it a second time here against Steve Erceg? The Office cast member Steve Erceg is 7 years younger than Alexandre Pantoja, coming in at 28 years old. And you know that rule that we always hear about for champions in the UFC, 35 is the number where everything starts to decline. So will that be the case for Alexandre Pantoja? Again, that rule typically applies to, I believe, welterweight, 170 pounds and under. Of course, here we are with the lightest men's weight class in the UFC at flyweight. Could we see a title victory and 1 title defense be the cap of the career if we're talking championship status for Pantoja? Will the new wave, started by Steve Erceg, the 28-year-old, take over at UFC 301 in Brazil, in enemy territory, as I have already previously mentioned? Erceg, quiet assassin, can finish people, has knockout power, a 12-1 record to his name. And when Steve Erceg debuted in June of 2023 last year against David Dvorak, that was a short notice replacement. He had just fought less than 4 months prior in February of 2023 on the regional circuit in Eternal MMA, and all of a sudden is thrown into the wolves of the UFC and beats a top 15 opponent like Dvorak very convincingly, may I add. And Pantoja always seems to be fighting with a chip on his shoulder. When we go back to when he beat Moreno last July to become world champion, he looked into the camera and he said, "Dad, are you proud of me now?" This is someone that was fatherless for a majority of his life, has grown to the top of his game, has mastered his craft with the team that he surrounds himself with, his family, his loved ones, and his team. You can just tell how much this means to Pantoja, and now he gets the opportunity to defend it on home soil. He has always asked to fight in Brazil. Now that wish has been granted, and it is granted in a main event slot on a pay-per-view card to defend the World Flyweight Championship. It doesn't get much better than that if you are Alexandre Pantoja, and Steve Erceg has a chance to etch his name in an elite list, as I mentioned in the intro. I love everything about this fight. I don't think you can hate on this fight and for Erceg getting this opportunity. We've seen worse, less deserving, if you will, title shots granted than this here of Steve Erceg. It's not like he's been on a losing stretch and just happened to win one fight. No, he entered on short notice. He's 3-0. He's beaten ranked opponents. He's finished ranked opponents. What more can you ask of the guy? And he's obviously not saying no to a world title shot. The flyweight division is moving rapidly right now. We just saw Alex Perez get his first win in nearly 4 years with a brutal knockout of Matheus Nicolau. That put Perez back at the number 5 spot and into title contention in the flyweight division. We have the aforementioned Muhammad Mokaev, who is still undefeated in his career, undefeated in the UFC, beat Alex Perez, who just won last weekend. So we have moving pieces in the flyweight division. This is a great stretch to kick off the summer months for the 125ers. Can Pantoja remain and still, or Erceg welcome in the new wave of talent? Pantoja is about as well-rounded as you will find a fighter in the flyweight division with 8 knockouts, 10 submissions, and 9 decisions. He can do it over the course of 25 minutes, as we've seen him do in 2 title fights. He can do it quickly and finish top-ranked opponents, as we've seen him do over this win streak. He is a jack of all trades. He has a very, very solid fight IQ. He is a well-rounded beast in the cage. And Steve Erceg has shown electric skills on the feet with power in all of his shots. He's a very methodical striker. If he gets taken down in this fight, which we have not seen him had to face so far in the UFC, things could get interesting, especially with someone as elite as Pantoja when it comes to the grappling world. If it stays on the feet, will Erceg's length and power be too much to handle? Because Pantoja has never been finished in his career. 5 losses, all by decision. Never been subbed, never been knocked out. And Astro Boy is used to knocking people out. It's going to be an interesting affair in the cage for the flyweight division, and you cannot hate on that. So let me know in the comments below who you think will come out of UFC 301 as the flyweight champion of the world. Will it be Alexandre Pantoja successfully defending for a second time, or will it be the newcomer Steve Erceg winning a title in less than 1 full year in the UFC and in just his 4th UFC fight? The storylines are aplenty in this flyweight scrap. Be sure to let me know your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. I hit on the X's and O's in my previews, but I focus more on the storylines of how we got to these fights and what is at stake. I also recap the most meaningful results every single weekend and give my thoughts and opinions on breaking MMA news and fight announcements. Join the community on social media at the BAJ MMA and follow the show on your favorite audio listening platform. If you like one long form audio podcast episode, you can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and I will see you in the next video.